Partnership recognition, I'd like to call the good neighbors of West Long Beach to kind of raise their hands. And they are among us. In addition to that, we have the Kamai, which the largest Wat temple of the Cambodian community is here in West Long Beach. So, Mr. President, from the Kamai community, we want to recognize you and thank you. In addition to that, we also have Councilwoman Cindy Allen, who's among us today, and she is actually a product of West Long Beach. So that's exciting because she has come back here to go through this session and push for more benefits to us here in West Long Beach. Thank you, Cindy. The partnership also includes the Latino Madres Unidas, a long-time standing advocate group here in West Long Beach. They are here as well in representation. Inclusive of that are the West Long Beach advocates. They are also here among us. Further to that are the Pacific Islander Caucus people, and they are all around you. Raise your hand and give a hand. So based on this demonstration, you can see the diversity that we have. And it's exciting that we're all participating in this final leg of the mayoral race. So, yeah.
That's worth talking about.
And guys, for the first time in ever of West Long Beach, we have a candidates forum of the mayoral candidates. Never before in history has this happened. Further to that, it's the first time that we have candidates from ancestral grounds, including an African American, Rex Richardson. And from Persia, we have Suzie Price. All Americans, as we all are. That's exciting. So, let the record show on this night, this has taken place. So you have taken a historical experience in this moment. I will now open up the floor for the parameters of the rules of the do's and don'ts so that the candidates know what not to do and how to do the best you can. The first rule in our exchange is there will be no character bashing. There will be no unnecessary reference to any of that. We want to make sure that the time that we have with our candidates is most precious to be able to bear the truth. There will be no misinterpretation of any facts. We have amongst us a fact checker. I'll not point that person out because it would not be helpful. But, however, we also have a timekeeper, and that would be Mr. Alex Cortez, previous candidate for the 7th District. Mr. Carlos Ovalle is among you. He is, in fact, our fact checker. All right, keep your eyes to yourselves. In any case, so we want to keep this presentation, we want to keep this forum as earnestly as possible. First question. You will have 3 minutes to answer. The timekeeper will give you a check time of 15 minutes before that 3 minutes is elapsed. Introductions. Yeah, sorry. So, we'll start with our self-introductions of our candidates, and then we'll go right into our questions and answers. All right. So, let us start. Mr. Rex, would you please present your platform, introduce yourself to our forum. Ruben, where are you? Please. I'm just a mouthpiece, the technical help are good.
Let's hear it for John Talifi for helping to organize today's forum. Thank you so much, Mr. Talifi, and everyone who's been involved in helping pull this together. I'm Rex Richardson. I'm proud to be here with you today. I'm a council member, vice mayor, 2 terms as vice mayor. I represent the 9th district, which is north of South Street, home to the Michelle Obama Neighborhood Library, Jordan High School. I grew up sort of in the Midwest and the South. I was born on Scott Air Force Base in Belleville, Illinois. My father was in the Air Force. He was military police in the Air Force. And my mother, she was a welder at General Motors in Missouri. Her roots were in the South. When my mother and father divorced, we moved back down to the South in a small town called Alabama, where a small town called Reform, where my mother's first grade teacher was my 2nd grade teacher, and my 5th grade teacher was my aunt. Very small town, but everyone knew each other. Everybody sort of looked out for one another. I came to California when I was 11 years old on a Greyhound bus. It was my sister, it was my younger brother, and my mom, and we worked hard. We had a 2-bedroom apartment. My mom had 1 bedroom. My sister and brother shared a bedroom, and I slept on the couch. When I was old enough, I got my first job at Jack in the Box. I made minimum wage, and my job was to pay the light bill. My sister had a job, she paid the phone bill, and I paid the rent. My mom paid the rent. And so that's how we sort of learned to survive, by everybody contributing. I went to college at Cal State Dominguez Hills, 1st generation college student, where I served as student body president. I met my wife on campus. We got married right here at Long Beach Museum of Art. Our 2 daughters were born at Long Beach Memorial. Bought my first home in North Long Beach when I was 25. I'd already lived here. I had an apartment at Bixby Knolls when I was still a college student. And I started working for the city when I was 26. One of the best opportunities I've ever received was to come and serve the city of Long Beach in North Long Beach. This is a community that had a bunch of stereotypes and stigmas. Don't go there because of this issue or that issue, but we understood that we need to organize. And so as chief of staff and as a council member, really I focused on community empowerment. We went from 4 to 12 or 13 neighborhood associations in the 9th district. We focused on issues like restoring our paramedic services, which was a big fight, and we restored them by 3 minutes. We built the Michelle Obama Neighborhood Library. We restored open space. We brought the first bank in decades to the district. And it's because I believe that we need to do a better job of making sure that all of our communities thrive. I'm running for mayor for that very reason. I've seen what we've been able to accomplish in North Long Beach and by working together. And I know that we all have a lot in common. Like, I didn't have a bank, but the West Side doesn't have a bank, right? We didn't have many grocery stores, and neither did North Downtown. We needed housing and economic opportunities, so does Central Long Beach, right? And so, as mayor, I want to bring in sort of an equity approach and make sure that as we recover from this pandemic, which has impacted all of us, and it's impacted all of our communities, I want to do so in a way where no neighborhood is left behind, no matter where you come from. I acknowledge that we have deep inequity and health divides in our city. People born on the west part of town. Brian, thank you. We need like a warning.
He did. He was holding. Yeah.
Oh, okay. There it is.
Thank you. Ms. Suzie?
Thank you. Well, good evening, everybody, and thank you for once again inviting me to your neighborhood to talk with you about some of the issues in the West Side community. For those of you who were here last time I was in this space talking to all of you, this is going to sound a little bit repetitive, so I apologize, but I do want to give you just a little bit of background about myself. My mother and I came to this country when I was 7 years old. We are political refugees. We fled a country that was going through a political revolution that involved a lot of human rights violations, specifically towards women. My mother raised me here as a single mom. I enjoyed talking with another nurse in the crowd tonight. My mom was a nurse, and she spent 42 years of her life as a public school nurse and taught me the value of public service and working hard. For the last 24 years, I've been working as a victims' rights advocate and a prosecutor in the criminal justice system, giving victims of crime a voice. I have developed specialties that I never in my life thought that I would develop: domestic violence specialty, child sexual assault specialty, vehicular homicide specialty, shaken baby specialty, and homicides. I've worked with some of the most vulnerable and traumatized communities in the world, giving them an opportunity to get through the justice system with dignity and an opportunity for healing. And I'm so proud of the work that I've done. I've been a council member now for 8 years. My commitment to the city has been service over politics. I try to be responsive to my residents, I try to serve their needs, and I try to work very hard for them to feel that the city is listening to them and is working hard for them. For the last 10 months, I have attended every single invitation I've received from anyone on the west side with a deep hunger to learn what the issues and the concerns are on this side of town. What I have learned over and over again from talking to people and sitting in some of your living rooms and sitting in some of your homes, and I just want to thank you, those of you who have given me the opportunity to come and hear what your concerns are. Because I wouldn't know what your concerns are if you didn't share them with me. I would never be able to say, this is what I think your concerns are, if you didn't share them with me. And the last time I was here, we actually all took a walk as a community and looked at what some of your concerns are. I know that this community feels they've been ignored by the city for a very long time. I know that this community feels that public safety in this neighborhood, in this area, has been ignored for a very long time. I know that this community specifically has concerns about quality of life issues specific to parking and traffic and access to goods and services that they feel have been ignored for a very long time. As a result of the conversations that I've had with some of you, we are already working with the property owner on the property on the corner to talk about rehabilitating that property to allow for parking. We are already engaged in conversations with 2 banks regarding the possibility of having a bank location here in West Long Beach. Now, I can't promise anything is going to happen or not happen, but I can tell you I'm working hard already for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Price. Our first question, and I'm going to put up some numbers and I want you people to be functional in your brains. Here's our situation. Our task is to address the non-existence of a bank, non-existence of a pharmacy, and an appropriate supermarket for our needs. And so, in West Long Beach, according to the 2020 census, we have 36,000 residents here. In 90810. In Bixby Knolls, 90807, there are 32,000 residents there. In the North Town, there are 95,000, 90805. In Wrigley, there are 90806 zip code, 41,000. And in the 5th District, there are 39,000, 90808. And in the East Side, 90815, there are 41,000 residents. The question here, why has it been for so many years that we don't have a pharmacy, a bank, a supermarket? And we need to pose this question now to these 2 candidates, because now it has come to the point where all our numbers are always running the same in terms of population. The question is, and I'll address it first, Ms. Suzie, will be followed by Mr. Rex. West Long Beach has a high and healthy consumer population. Unfortunately, all of that money spent is across the other side of town. We need to keep it here somehow. Make it so that West Long Beach can sustain itself in circulation of capital. Because we don't have these non-existing needs, these markets and these pharmacies and a bank, what do you propose that you can do to bring this realization forward?
So a couple of things. I can tell you exactly why you don't have a bank and exactly why you don't have a pharmacy. Because I've talked with 2 large banks in the area and a pharmacy that just closed in my district. I talked to them about coming here. Your business corridors, as they are now, are not the type of business corridors that new businesses want to invest in right now. We're repeatedly hearing that there's concerns about what appears to be blight, what appears to be a lot of too many vacancies, what appears to be an increased number in crime and homeless activity along the main corridors. So people are hesitant to do investments there. So as your next mayor, what I would do is partner with you. We would meet, you would get an invitation from me on November 9th, and it would ask for us to meet as a group. We would invite your council member, the representatives from the office, their office, to join us if they wanted to, but we would talk about an operational plan. What are the short, mid, and long-term goals? The short-term goals for west side of Long Beach, in my opinion, is rehabilitating the corridors, the business corridors. That's where we have to start. And we're going to rehabilitate the business corridors by getting private companies to invest in revitalizing these corridors by basic beautification and cleaning up. I know that seems vain, but I'm a business owner. My husband and I own a business, a brick and mortar shop. And no business is going to want to invest in a community that they don't feel is investing in them. A community where they don't feel customers are going to want to go. And so we need to make the space more inviting. We need to make the space walkable, and we need to make the space such that new businesses want to come and fill some of those vacancies. We do have some interest in West Side. I don't know about a grocery store because I haven't met with them yet. The grocery stores, I am meeting with a bunch of grocers from the Grocers Association on Friday, and I will talk to them specifically about West Long Beach. But I'll tell you, they kind of have a bad taste in their mouth right now because some of the decisions that we've made as a council, they believe impacted their ability to do well in Long Beach. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But it's going to take some relationship building to get them to want to invest back into Long Beach. But in terms of banks and pharmacy, I know of 2 bank institutions that are interested. We're going to continue having those conversations. And should I not prevail in this race and Councilman Richardson prevails in this race, I will give him all of those contacts so that he can follow up with those people who have already expressed an interest in forming a bank here. But,
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Suzie. Mr. Rex, the same question, and if I may remind the question, what will you do when you become the mayor to help us receive a bank, have a pharmacy so that our seniors do not traverse that dangerous road across the bridge? What can you do to help us to do that, arrive at that?
Great, thank you for the question. I know this situation because it's the very situation that we had in North Long Beach 12 years ago. My district, when I assumed office, was the only district without a bank, the only district without a library, the only district without even a Starbucks. We didn't have a paramedic either. Our response times were 3 minutes slower. We couldn't, I wish it were, and I wish it was as easy as cleaning up the corridor, but I can tell you there's a whole lot more to it. Number one, we have to get the story right. Like the West Side has been in decline ever since redlining, when resources were not given and insurance and mortgages were not given at the same rate because this community was redlined. The 710 freeway has also been a contributing factor to both North and West Long Beach for decline. It leads to poor air quality and lack of resources. What we have to do is some of the things we've done in North Long Beach. We got a bank there, but we had to put in money to help pay for it. So it's going to require capital to make it happen. Uptown Commons, what we did was we drew down the value of the land and we made the money back up in 2 years because in additional property tax and sales tax that it generated, right? So we brought down the property value by $1 million and then we made up an additional $500,000 for the next 2 years and made it up. That's what we were able to do. We also focused on land use. We had corridors with chop shops, liquor stores, nuisance motels. All those things were some of the reasons why we couldn't get coffee shops and banks and grocery stores. So once we began to address nuisance liquor stores, we did a alcohol nuisance abatement ordinance that cleaned up liquor stores, a nuisance motel ordinance. We just acquired the worst motel in the city, Luxury Inn. Those all contribute to helping make a meaningful difference. Then we put forward a land use plan called Up Plan, which improved the zoning on those corridors to make it easier for things like healthcare and banks. We have a number of new urgent cares and clinics that are located there. We have a number. We've started, 14 new restaurants since the beginning of the pandemic. 2 or 3 of them didn't make it. We understand it's a pandemic, but prior to that, we couldn't attract a new restaurant. We even had small businesses like Sal's Gumbo Shack. You probably heard of them. That started in the 9th District, right? They took a lot of hand holding and cultivation, but guess what? Sal's Gumbo Shack opened a second location in Bixby Knolls. The work that we've done in North Long Beach can happen here on the West Side. It can happen in the middle of the city. We've never had a mayor that's ever come from one of our communities before that understands what it's going to take to do it. You have my commitment. I'm excited to roll up my sleeves in West Long Beach and in Central Long Beach and do some of the work that I know is award-winning and recognized and makes a meaningful difference in all of our lives. So that's what we're going to do. We are going to do a new land use plan. We're going to invest in our corridors. We're going to use our own budget to incentivize economic development based on the priorities of the community. The things we achieved in North Long Beach is because we worked together with our community to make it happen. That's what we're gonna do on the west side. I'm gonna work with all of you, understand your priorities, so we can make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rex. Our next question pertains to some of the unfortunate population that we have amongst us, and that's the homeless. You know, one of the concerns that we have here in West Long Beach is that the homeless embankment is all along the river. We're the first impacted community in the entire city. So under the bridges, all along the path, the bike paths, they're all up there. And when they come into the community, they pour right into West Long Beach. Our question here is, as mayor, what will you do to find a resolve for that? Because if you drive anywhere else outside of West Long Beach in other communities, the homelessness there is not as prevalent as it is here. So help us out. Do you need to reinforce law enforcement? Do we need to have social ambassadors out there? What do we need to do? Well, we need to do something because it's becoming a high risk of life condition here. So, go ahead, Mr. Rex, you ready to fire, please?
Thank you. So on the issue of homelessness, you're right. It's not an issue, it's not a new issue for the west part of town. I represent the area that's the intersection of the 710 and the 91 freeway, and we've dealt with encampments for many, many years. The challenge is when we work with the county to clean up the county space and offer resources, and then folks just pitch a tent and jump the fence, and now they're on Caltrans property or on the freeway property. And what I will tell you is it's complex. We haven't had the luxury of saying not in my backyard on the west part of town, the north side of town. We haven't had that luxury. So we've been dealing with this for a while. I have a plan. It's to build a more robust capacity to deal with homelessness and comprehensively. Housing and shelter, it's called the HOPE plan. The H is housing and shelter. O is for outreach. That is neighborhood specific outreach plans and additional outreach, street level outreach. For example, there's no plan for outreach along the LA River. Right now, it's a coordinated effort with the county that's not even on a regular schedule. So we don't have a plan along the river. There's no coordinated plan for downtown. So we're in the outreach plans. The P is for pathways. It's difficult. Once you find someone who's ready to come off the street, the pathway is very challenging. Even if you have family members with resources, because you're dealing with things like mental health issues, substance use, domestic abuse. And so we have to streamline our pathways to get people off the street and into the right kind of support. I talk with our hospitals, they say we don't have recuperative care in the city. You know, somebody comes in with a cut arm, we fix their arm, we haven't fixed them here. We haven't fixed it here because we haven't addressed the meds. We haven't talked about the things they need to recover. And so those are some of the pathways. And the last one, E, is expanding our capacity to work on mental health issues in our city. So I have a proposal. It's been working through city council and the county to localize mental health services through partnering with our county, LA County DMH, to be able to deploy more resources to local service providers, require coordination with our city. There's a lot of work happening today, but there's no requirement to coordinate with our city because we're not the funder. They coordinate with the county. We have our own health department. We're one of 3 cities in the whole state with our own health department, but we don't have any local control over mental health. By partnering with the county, we can do those things. So the whole plan, we have a one-pager here with us, and it's available on our website. I'm proud that, I have a proven track record of delivering on what I say. I led on creating the city's first municipal homeless shelter. After doing so, I'm proud that the city council has stepped up in many ways, all of us, including Councilmember Price, in doing, Project Room Key and converting motels to be a part of the solution. Because when you do outreach, if somebody says they're ready to come off the street, there's 3 weeks, I see 15 seconds. You end up having maybe a 3-week wait to actually have the resources you need to come off the street. So we have to be comprehensive. It's not just street level outreach. We have to build more capacity for shelter, recuperative care, housing, and all of those things. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rex. Ms. Suzie, please.
Thank you. So I'm very involved in this space already. I supervise in my day job the Homeless Corps program, the Drug Corps program, the Veterans Corps program, the Mental Health Diversion program, the Recidivism Reduction and Mental Health units. And I work with the healthcare agency in Orange County to do outreach all the time. In fact, today I was at a commission meeting, the Commission to End Homelessness. I serve on that commission, and we talked a lot about what works and what doesn't work. Long Beach saw a 62% increase in homelessness in the last point in time count. Other cities around us saw a decline. Anaheim, who's a peer city to us, meaning same size and demographic, saw a decline. Santa Ana, who's the same size city, demographic similar, they're called peer cities, they saw a decline. They do something that's very different than what we do here. And I talk to the city manager all the time about the need for us to change the way we are doing what we are doing and not be defensive in admitting that what we're doing is not the right way to do it. Homeless outreach and connecting people to services is no different than building any other relationship. It's about meeting people where they're at, building a relationship based on trust and respect to the point where they trust you and they're willing to take your advice, and connecting them with services. Of the homeless population that we have today, 1/3 of them are ready for housing and simply experiencing a financial hardship from an eviction or a job loss. That population is the easiest population for us to place. In fact, Councilman Richardson and I were in a forum on Sunday, and one of the people who asked the question at the forum about homeless housing shared with us that he has a homeless voucher, housing voucher, and I worked with that person, gave him my cell phone number on Sunday, and he got an apartment today. Because I was able to work with landlords to get him a 1-bedroom apartment with his son, Spencer, who he's very proud of, and we got them an apartment. So getting people to the point where they accept a service requires daily contact for a 2-week period of time. The way we're doing outreach right now is that they'll go out today. They may not go out for another month or 6 weeks. No one is going to remember somebody was kind to them a month or 6 weeks ago. But if you go every day and you show up for people every day and you build those relationships by having conversations with things like, can we watch your pet while you go with us to fill out your paperwork for a California ID card? Meeting people where they're at. Where was the last place you felt safe? How can we get you there? I do that every day. And you cannot force people into housing if they're not ready for housing. We need to connect them to services, and then once they're connected to a service, they're going to need an ambassador, a navigator, to take them through the process from there. And we can do it if we change the way we've been doing it now.
Thank you. Thank you both. Our next question, I need to kind of set the precedence here. It pertains to business improvement district. West Long Beach, in the corridor that we've established, is the Santa Fe corridor. It stretches about a mile up and down from Wardlow to the port, and then a bit of quarter mile from the freeway to the end here. The interesting thing about building a business district is that it's convoluted with private homes on this area of town. And so this is what we want to establish. CDBG fundings are also within this same range. And those fundings are federal funds that are brought in to improve the infrastructure of this area. What can you help us with if you become mayor to facilitate a business district or business investment district in this part of town? Start with Miss Suzie, please.
So I'll use a phrase Councilman Richardson uses a lot. I have a proven track record of business improvement districts. I have 3 business improvement districts in my neighborhood, in my district, and so I work with business improvement districts every day. I know what it takes to establish them. I know what it takes to keep the vacancies low, and I'm very proud of that. We have the Belmont Shore Business Improvement District, the Zacharia Business Improvement District, and the Marina Pacifica Business Improvement District. And those are some of the highest producing sales tax revenue business improvement districts. I'm also a business owner who pays into a business improvement district. So I know how the operation works, what benefits go back to the businesses in exchange for their assessment fees. And I can tell you, I will absolutely help you facilitate a business improvement district here. But we cannot do that until we revitalize the corridor and beautify the corridor. That's the reality, because we can create a business improvement district, but making sure that we're filling the vacancies with businesses that are going to generate revenue and not continue to get swapped out because they're not succeeding is going to be critical. So what kind of businesses are we going to attract here? And how are those businesses going to be able to compete in this market? And that's going to be important. So one of the things that I have said repeatedly is that the city needs to be more invested in business recruitment and retention. The type of business that might do well in one part of town may not do well in another part of town. And identifying what the market will bear for that particular type of business and the residents in that business corridor is going to be critical in making sure that we're successful. The city needs to allocate some money specifically to business recruitment and retention. And that's what we need to do to make sure that the business improvement district, once it's established, establishing a business improvement district is not difficult at all. We could do that for you tomorrow. Either one of us can make that commitment, start that process, and get it done. Having a thriving, successful business improvement district that generates enough revenue from the businesses to sustain some of the beautification for that corridor is what's critical. So I would ask you, is there a business improvement district nearby? Drive around, see which ones are successful, see which ones are doing well, and you will find that the ones that are doing well have walkability, have good lighting, have good assortment of businesses so that people can go to dinner and then maybe get ice cream afterwards, or people can go to a retail shop and then go eat. There's got to be a good, diverse base of businesses in order for a business improvement district to thrive and not be filled with vacancies. And that is critical. And I know how to do that because I'm very involved in filling vacancies. We are the only council office that has a business liaison. And I brought that person onto my team in 2014 because of the fact that we have 3 bids in our neighborhood.
Thank you. So creating a business improvement district is not easy. And I can tell you that because as Chief of Staff to Councilman Neal, it was my job to create the Uptown Business District. It started at the North Palm Beach Business Association. So we began meeting with the businesses on the corridor first. Then we went to the city and said, hey, we look at the areas across town that are thriving. Many of them have this one thing in common. They have this thing called a business improvement district. So the planning director at the time was Amy Bodek. I remember this conversation. I said, Amy, we want one of those in North Palm Beach. Amy said, the businesses aren't ready. Come back in about 10 years and we can start a business improvement district. I said, that's how long it takes, 10 years? Yeah, to get the businesses ready, go through the process 10 years. I said, okay, well today is day 1 and tomorrow's day 2 and the next day is day 3. We got it done in 2 years and it wasn't easy. What I can tell you is in some of our communities, we are very different. And we have dealt with decades and generations of poverty and lack of investment. And that does not turn around overnight. A business improvement district is a part of the solution. It is not the end goal after you clean up your corridor. When we created our Uptown Business District, they played a vital role in helping clean and safe, helping the corridor become clean and safe. What does that mean? They partnered with Conservation Corps to go and clean up Atlantic Avenue. One of the first projects was to deploy trash cans and make sure that they were serviced and maintained. Now, Conservation Corps, based on that partnership, has the deeper interest in North Palm Beach, just built a new facility at the Forest Park that we're opening up this month, the Environmental Stewardship Center, and they're doing work along the LA River, the Forest Wetlands, and Atlantic and Artesia Boulevard because of that partnership with the Business Improvement District. So it's a part of the revitalization strategy. I know this because, again, I have a proven track record of delivering on these results. Now, what I can tell you is not the end of this loop. It's not the end all be all. We have to lead with our own budget and cleaning up light, taking out some, using our policies to take out nuisance liquor stores, check cashing places, all those things that pull the nutrients and value out of the community. We have to set a plan for our public right-of-way. So if you look, Artesia Boulevard has a $36 million investment on hand. That took like 8 years to get to that point. But that's us cleaning up our own right-of-way. The business district was first, right? Now we're getting $33 million to clean up Artesia Boulevard, and we supplement that also with a land use plan, which guides the future development. When you walk down Atlantic Avenue, I always point this out. There's a CVS. The side of the building, the back of the building, all face the street. You know what's not on the street? A window, the door. It's not engaging to the street. Someone approved that project because there were no design guidelines. What are the design guidelines on Santa Fe? What are they? They don't exist because we haven't updated the land use and the zoning on Santa Fe in many, many years. Now you have a West Side livability plan, which invests in open space, all those things, but you need a land use plan Thank you so much. I know how to do this, so we're gonna make sure it happens. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your answers. Quick reference. You both are familiar with the CDBG funds, as I referred to. Is there a possibility, you may not be able to answer it thoroughly tonight, but is there a possibility of using those funds to augment any business improvement in the district? Because those are funds that are allocated to us in our area.
Yeah, we can speak to that quickly if you want.
Please.
Both can. So CDBG is one of the only resources that we have in communities below a certain income level. So in many ways, it's all we have. The challenge is we have not reformed the way we use it. For example, there's a $2,000 commercial rebate program where you can do windows and doors. It was $2,000 when I started with the city in 2010. The costs have gone up. And then you need a wet signature. We have a lot of absentee landlords in New York and all over the place. You send them a piece of paper, that paper isn't coming back. So the program doesn't work. But what we're doing now, we just went through a process called our 5-year con plan, which updates CDBG. What it does now is allowing us to go up to $10,000 per application. So if you have a 4-unit building with the owner, you can do $40,000 for the tenants, plus an additional $10,000, you can apply for it every year. And we're streamlining the process.
Thank you. That answers the question. Ms. Suzie, please. Because we want to be able to see that the CDBG does not necessarily have to stay within the infrastructure road building. It could be applied to other things.
Yeah, in fact, it's specifically called out in the funding source that you can use it to revitalize neighborhoods that fall within the geographic area. So things like facade improvements, grants for people to do tenant improvements, community organizing and community cleanups, corridor cleanups, that can all, it's specifically called out in the legislation as the way that you can use that money to revitalize neighborhoods that fall within the parameters and the guidelines.
Very good. Thank you. I'm going to take it quickly to another couple of questions and then we're going to open up the forum from floor questionings. The first thing is, when you become mayor, either one of you, would you and how would you address inappropriate placement of businesses in communities? For example, right now we have a challenge. When I was chair of this CDAC, we allocated monies to secure a park area down in that area of town, right along the historical community of Willow, I believe it is. So that whole area now is slated as a park. Next to the park is a proposal to turn or at least house a distillery, which is going to impact lives there for students in schools and the residents in their homes. How do you look at supporting the residents there by abating this kind of a buildup in that safe environment? Start with you, Ms. Suzie.
Well, I'm very proud of the history of success, I'll put, so we don't use all the same words, that I've had in the area of being a council member in a heavy business corridor that abuts within feet to homes and parks. It is an incredibly difficult challenge. There are very few of us on the city council that represent business and residential districts that are in that close of a proximity. And understanding how to manage the quality of life impacts and the possible negative impacts of certain businesses to the community has been very, very important to me. In fact, I was, and I'll admit it, I've come a long way on this, but I was one of the largest opponents to having brick and mortar marijuana shops in the middle of a business corridor that abuts neighborhoods because I was concerned of what that impact would be on the residents. Now, as a result of Prop 64, we have legitimate businesses who are held to a very high standard, and there's business owners that are working very well with us to minimize the impacts. So things like smells and lines and things like that, they're able to work on to reduce the quality of life impacts. I will tell you that in a situation that you're talking about, I'm not the council person for the area, so I'm not plugged into that specific project, but I've certainly heard plenty about it on the campaign trail. I think it's really important to engage the neighborhoods. And as a council member, I think one thing that is absolutely proof about me is that I do a really good job communicating with residents about things that are coming forward. I do not wait till the council meeting for us to have those discussions. I'm not implying that other people do, so I don't want it to be taken that way. I just want to share that I'm very proactive in engaging the community. In fact, somebody from the West Side told me that they receive my newsletter every week, so they know how much we try to engage people. You need to get community feedback to understand what the impacts are going to be. There are some uses that are not conducive next to a park. A liquor store, a bar, a dance club, an adult bookstore, those are not things you'll ever want to see next to a neighborhood or next to a park. So you want to get feedback from the residents, and sometimes you have to make the difficult decision, like I did last night on a vote, that the residents' opinions and quality of life impacts have to prevail over the business interests. Sometimes you have to make that decision. And sometimes that's a very difficult decision to make, but it's important to make sure that the quality of life impacts are not going to be too much. I'll tell you, the one issue that we have is bars and entertainment venues right next to homes. That impacts people in a very negative way with parking and noise, and most importantly, people that are intoxicated leaving the business and either getting into a fight or a car accident right outside of someone's home. We want to try to make sure that we preserve the quality of life in neighborhoods. Thank you.
Mr. Rex?
Thank you. Thank you. So our community in North Long Beach has dealt with this for quite some time. I will tell you, we've developed a whole lot of experience in dealing with blights and nuisances. I can think back to when Councilman Neal was in office. The very first issue we tackled were vacant foreclosures. We came up with a foreclosure registry that held the banks accountable for the condition of those vacant foreclosures. And the next thing we took on was nuisance liquor stores. We found out that a lot of liquor stores still had payphones and graffiti and all of these things because they were in place before our modern standards and conditional use permits were in place. And so that's why you see a difference between an old school liquor store and say something that's more modern, a market or whatever. Because that market has a conditional use permit that talks about the hours of operation, their standards. You can't have a payphone, you can't have loitering, you can't have all these things. So we created an ordinance called the Alcohol Nuisance Abatement Ordinance, which created a new standard to hold those businesses accountable. Then we needed to address motels because we had 5 nuisance motels on one corridor. And we created a nuisance motel ordinance that holds those motels to higher standards. Then there's the bars on Artesia. We used to have some of the worst bars on Artesia. I think we maybe have 2 left because over time, through updating our standards and through economic development and through enforcement, we've been able to address some of those nuisance liquor stores. I can tell you right now, there's one that used to exist called Bottoms Up. They've had a history of crime. We work together in partnership with the neighborhood association to educate them on, hey, this is how you report a call, this is how you hold them accountable, and work with our police department. Unfortunately, this was a big nuisance. They had some shootings. They had a person leave the bar and crash into a building and kill a father and a 3.5-year-old daughter. That liquor store is gone now, but I say that to say we know what it's like to have these businesses that have impacted our communities. The other thing you have to do is update the land use and the zoning on the corridors. We've done that on Artesia, on Atlantic, to create consistency that incentivizes things you want, grocery stores, markets, neighborhood serving amenities, and takes emphasis off of the things that you don't want. Too many car washes, too many, check cashing places, and all of those things. So you need a full court press to address some of these challenges with nuisances. Now, I will speak to the distillery. Again, it's not the council district that I represent, but what I will tell you is whenever something is placed next to a school, and I don't want to prejudge it because it may come in front of city council, but whenever things are placed close to a school, there's grounds to make a determination and say that this may not be the right use. And so the full community context needs to be taken into consideration. How far are you away from schools? How far are you away from parks? Are there too many of the same thing on the same corridor? And in those cases, we found opportunities when the city council's been on the right side of those. Thanks.
Thank you. Guys, we're moving forward quite smoothly. I'm going to now convert our questioning. It's going to go to the floor. And so please, let's not have any heckling experiences. That's not necessary here. But we would like to pose some questions. I think I've got a question here from this gentleman here. And he'll come and pose it directly to you. And there you are. So again, the rule stands for a question, 3 minutes, please.
Well, just like John, I want to preface my question with a little story, anecdote. Actually, today, the River Park Coalition received an amazing news from the judge that's looking over the case related to the Insight development just north of the 405. The judge has ruled against Insight development. Just so that everybody understands what's happening here, Insight Development is one of the developers that's looking at eliminating what was once promised as the Wrigley Heights North Park at the intersection of the LA River and the 405 freeway, just north of that. The city also promised the southern part of it, which is now being slated for a gated community that most of us won't be able to afford. But anyways, the northern part, the judge has ruled against Insight Development. And also, as part of that whole story is that two of our two candidates here, one of these candidates has been one of the highest recipients of campaign contributions from that developer. The first one was actually our mayor, Robert Garcia. So the question, I guess, is, in light of this, the judge has now ruled in favor of the people. Where do you stand in this term or in this issue? And where do you stand on the issues that West Long Beach is facing throughout the LA River? From, as John mentioned, lack of investment, the issue of social equity, the issue of environmental justice. Thank you.
Please.
Thank you. So I'm familiar with the project, and I'll tell you, the situation was that this particular site was not zoned the way that it needed to be zoned in order to protect it. When the city went through the land use element process, this specific site was not designated for that, and it was designated for industrial. When it's zoned industrial, you can't spot zone, you can't tell somebody you can't build what is already zoned to build, right? So once it's zoned industrial, somebody came in and proposed an application that was consistent with the city's rules. That's why we have planning. You have general planning, specific planning that outlines what can be done. Now broadly, we have deep inequity as it relates to parks on the north and the west part of town compared to the east part of town. I mean, my district is 1/10 of the open space than the old fifth. I don't know what the demographics are on the new fifth, but 1/10 of it. And so I've been a leader on identifying opportunities a few ways. One, in my first term, I worked with Kaiser Permanente in our health department to establish create a uptown open space plan. I get a couple of seconds for that. Uptown open space plan, which asks the question, people say our communities are built out and you can't build parks. Well, what are the opportunities that exist? This plan identified things like rights of way with Edison, or freeway embankments, or underutilized vacant lots that could be used, and outlined what the rough order of magnitude costs would be for those cities, what needs to happen from a zoning standpoint to protect those properties. That plan went on to win an American Planning Association award, and it set the foundation for a number of projects that either weren't prioritized and had died, or new projects, like the rehabilitation of Houghton Park, its community center, the Ronald Artist Health Equity Center, the DeForest Park Vision, 40 acres of open space at DeForest Park, as well as a new community center along the river. We've actually done a pretty good job in Long Beach with the DeForest Gap, DeForest Wetlands, and Dominguez Gap in recent years. Along the river, there's more that needs to be done. The biggest opportunity is the river itself. The lower LA River strategies have been outlined, but they haven't been sufficiently funded. As mayor, I'm going to re-engage with the state around the lower LA River, because we are the lowest of the LA River, we're the bottom, to make sure that we have opportunities. There's a few other things that the city is doing down further south, Drake Chavez, and some of those things, which all came from establishing a local plan. And so Drake Chavez had a plan, you saw that plan implemented. Uptown has a plan, you see that plan implemented. We need a plan on the west part of town that does some of the very same things. I also support the fact that I support the county's effort to green and reserve and protect the additional open space that's county property over there. So what I'll tell you is, if the property at that site, were zoned correctly, and I'm not the council member in those areas, and we all deferred to the council people in that area on the land use element. If it'd be different, the council would have voted differently. But that's just not the case.
Thank you, Rex.
Thank you.
Ms. Suzie, please.
Thank you. So just by way of background for everyone that's here, when a property is vacant, what happens with that property is determined by how that property is zoned. So Councilman Richardson just talked about it. Every so often, the city goes through a process where they update the zoning. And we went through that process as a city council. It was called the land use element. And what we did, each council member, I think, this is what we did in our neighborhood, is we had multiple meetings about the land use element, and we looked at every single neighborhood in the district, sometimes even walking those neighborhoods to determine what made sense for increased height, what made sense for open space, and we went through that process with our residents and our community organizations to put that input into the land use element. Now, if a property is zoned for residential or commercial or industrial, and you rezone it and make it open space, then the property owners can claim that you have now impacted their property rights in a negative way, and they could sue the city. So you have to figure out, when you're gonna rezone that dramatically, what is the likelihood that that property owner would ever be able to build on that site to begin with? So in my district, I'm very proud of the work I've actually done. Not just talking about it, but actually did it. I represent a lot of open space that was not preserved as open space. It's called the wetlands, the Los Cerritos wetlands. Right now we have an In-N-Out Burger on the corner of PCH and 2nd Street. There should never have been an In-N-Out Burger built on top of wetlands. Our wetlands, even though they don't look beautiful like the ones in Bolsa Chica, they have the potential to. In fact, they're really unusual because they get salt water coming into the wetlands, which makes them really unusual in terms of the birds and the fish that they can attract. It's a very opportunity for restoration of that wetlands is unbelievable, okay? So what we did was we preserved that area as open space forever. Forever, it will never be able to have any building around it. But we also determined the properties around it that were currently zoned for commercial or residential or industrial were never going to be able to be built on anyway because they're so close to this environmental habitat. And so we worked with the attorneys to develop a solid case that we could stand on that says this is bordering a wetlands. You're never going to be able to build housing there. That's a false property right. You're never going to be able to build a house there or a development. And so we modified the zoning to make that open space. The property owners were not happy, but they didn't sue us because we were well versed in the law in terms of what we could do. And I think that when we're talking about the West Side and environmental justice, first of all, we have to start listening to the residents. Two, we need to rezone and make sure we have.
Thank you, Ms. Suzie. Thank you. So a real quick adjustment. Go ahead and give applause to the answers. Quick adjustments. When you answer the question, or whether when you ask a question, I'm reducing it to 30 seconds, so blow your question out. The answers are going to be reduced down to 2 minutes because of our time constraints. We have a question here.
Ms. Price and Mr. Richardson, thank you for being here. I just want to let you know I'm a little nervous. I lost my son last year. He was killed in Long Beach. And the gentleman suspected of driving reckless and speeding. And I'm in court now. They've already started. And my question to you is, when we don't hold criminals accountable, we're going to have a situation in a city that's 468,000, seventh largest in California, with criminals racing down the streets. I was in Compton Superior Court this week trying to get justice for my son. It broke my heart when the deputy district attorney said, had he been killed in Huntington Beach, we wouldn't be here. So what is it about Long Beach? I thought justice was supposed to be blindfold. What are we doing wrong? It's not what you have done, it's what you haven't done. I teach my kids, I slap their hands and it's in the cookie jar. It just seems that our leaders have forgotten about the moms and the victims. So it can't be any different than Huntington Beach.
Ms. Suzie, please.
Thank you. And I will disclose, I have worked, I know of Aiden's case. I'm very involved in Mothers Against Drunk Driving, so we have worked together and we're going to continue to work together on educating our youth. First of all, I've been a prosecutor for 24 years. I believe it's important for us to have compassion and intervene early to help people get the treatment and the services they need to not get on the criminal justice pathway. But I do believe that once they're on the criminal justice pathway, they need to be held accountable for their actions. Everyone needs to be held accountable for their actions. And we can sit here all day long and talk about things like, well, why did they get there? How did they get there in the first place? But she's lost her son as a result of someone's selfish decision to drive the way he did and then drive away. I'm very proud of the fact that I am the Traffic Safety Resource Prosecutor Program Coordinator for the state of California, that I'm the first vehicular homicide deputy to ever be named in the United States to handle vehicular homicide cases. I go to court every day with victims like Aiden's family. I hold their hands, I go to funerals, I go to memorials, I go with them to arraignments, I go with them to preliminary hearings, and I can tell you the culture in holding people accountable for crime is very different in Orange County than it is in LA County. In my opinion, that's because of some of the policies at the LADA's office, specifically about victims' access to the court system. They do not have the same type of system that we have in Orange County. In Orange County, a district attorney will never resolve a case without talking to the victims. We will never ask an offer from a court without talking to the victims. That is not the standard in Orange County, in LA County. In fact, in LA County, they don't even charge enhancements. So if someone has committed prior offenses with a gun or killed someone or raped someone, they will not add that as an enhancement to their current case. That is not justice.
Thank you, Ms. Suzie.
So what I'll tell you is, first, I'm very sorry to hear, I'm not familiar with the situation, but I am so sorry that that happened to you. And as a father, I have to tell you, I couldn't imagine it, and it's not okay. And your question about holding people accountable, I would agree. If someone breaks the law, they should be held accountable. And it is particularly when you understand the impact that those actions have on the broader community. You know, the trauma and all those things that people are going to deal with. And so, you know, I believe in things like making sure, like doing what we can, because I'm not an attorney, I'm not a prosecutor, I'm not a DA, but as mayor, there are things that we can do to make sure that we have safer streets and that enforcement is happening on our streets. So 2 things I can tell you is, like, I represent a community, Atlantic and Artesia, right by Jordan High School, was one of the most unsafe corridors in the city based on data. We learned this through our Vision Zero initiative. That's in my community. We know that we've had a number of traffic safety accidents in those areas, and we've taken a lot of short-term and long-term actions to make the corridor safer, from adding better pedestrian infrastructure, adding better lighting, and those things have made a big difference. In fact, at the City Council meeting last week, we approved a full overhaul of Artesia Boulevard, $36 million to make it safer because there are multiple schools on Artesia Boulevard. I say this to say that the city is not powerless, even though we have we have a local prosecutor who prosecutes sort of lower level issues, misdemeanors, but federal, we don't prosecute felonies in the city, but we do have a responsibility for making our city safer. So as mayor, I'm gonna implement Vision Zero and talk about traffic safety, and I'm gonna invest in traffic enforcement to make sure when people are breaking the laws and doing things in our city that we're there to make sure we hold them accountable.
Thank you, Rex. I'm going to make another adjustment, guys. 15 seconds to pose a question, 1 minute to answer.
Great. I think you both did a really great job tonight, and it's so good to hear that whoever were to win mayor would invest in the west side of Long Beach. My question is, what do you say to the 10-year-old kid that's growing up here that doesn't have the same opportunities, that doesn't have the same access, that doesn't have the same air quality as kids growing up on the east side of Long Beach?
1 minute answer, please.
I don't know that I can do that in one minute. Here's what I would say. Children lack young people that grow up on the west side and North Long Beach. They lack opportunities, and they have the deck stacked against them, from air quality to a whole host of things. Like, life expectancy is 17 years shorter, basically because you were born on the west part of town. And this is something I take very seriously, When I first got on city council, I led the effort for City of Long Beach to become a My Brother's Keeper city. And this was a commitment to boys and young men of color, which statistically show that if we make an impact on young boys and young men of color's lives, make sure they're reading by 3rd grade, make sure they have access to stable housing so that they can graduate and move on and be, so that we can do those things. We implemented that plan, and it's made a much bigger commitment in the city to things like second chances. I created the city's first youth fund and a whole host of things. I think we've created a culture for young people that's better, but there's more that we need to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ricks.
Well, what I think I would tell a 10-year-old in this city anywhere is you belong here. And we as a city are going to do everything we can to help you become successful and get opportunities that you would not otherwise have. I'll give you an example of something that I did that I think is going to impact lives in a very positive way. Long Beach is home to an Olympic rowing stadium. A lot of people don't know this, but Marine Stadium is an Olympic rowing stadium. And what people don't know is the #1 scholarship opportunity for female athletes is in the sport of rowing. And every single year, our Long Beach Junior Crew program gets scholarships for students to go to Ivy League schools like Stanford and Harvard. And kids that don't have the money to be a part of that program don't ever get that chance. So I started a rowing equity scholarship program. It's a 10-week course that's available to Cabrillo, Jordan, and Pauley High School students that meet an income level. 10-week program. If they want to participate, they get a scholarship. We have our first scholarship applicant finishing her 2nd year, headed to Harvard.
Thank you, Susie. We have a question here from one of our most long-time residents, deeply rooted in West Long Beach, and she's going to give it to you.
My question is, how do we give equality? Because very different to live over the bridge where they will pave the street that didn't need to be paved all the way from below Pacific Coast Highway. And you go across the street here where I live, every street in that neighborhood needs to be paved. There's no way of treating us the way that they treat us. A lot of the stuff that Ms. Price said at the beginning was in a letter from Uranga. A whole lot of stuff that doesn't apply to this side of town. And let's remember that we already have a market in this side of town. There's no room for a bank. You're dreaming they would never set up a regular bank in this area. There's no room. So there's a lot of empty lots. Maybe they could build housing for the poor, but a lot of the stuff is like people in cloud nine. It's not reality.
Far away, Ms. Susie.
So thank you for sharing that. The responsibility of advocating for streets is really up to your council member. So hopefully you've received that advocacy from your council member. If not, as mayor, I would work with your council member to do everything we can to help your council members succeed in their district. But right now, the way streets are paved is determined on an objective standard. It means it's not what the council person wants or what people think is a street that needs to be paved. We have an objective methodology called the Pavement Management Index that measures the structural foundation of every street in the city of Long Beach. So even though a street may look like it has lizarding or potholes, the foundation of that street may be strong such that the top only needs a slurry seal or a pothole filling. That's how the decisions are made. So even though sometimes it feels like the district or street didn't need to be repaved, the structural foundation may have been such that it did need to be repaved. But that's something you're going to work with your council member on. I have not been your council member, but as mayor, I will work with your council member to help.
Thank you, Ms. Susie. Mr. Rex.
Thank you. I don't want to oversimplify this. It is not the fault of your council member that you have decades and generations of neglect and poor infrastructure on the west part of Long Beach. No council member can overcome that in 4 years, 8 years, or 12 years. It will require investing money. That is called equity. In order to give people what they need to thrive, it may mean that we may have to spend more money or we may have to prioritize other things. I represent North Long Beach. I know what it's like to have to say, I have to prioritize fixing the roof on the Houghton Park Community Center instead of the Houghton Park Playground because we had a choice to make. I think that's an unfair choice. I think children, no matter what part of town, need playgrounds. I think seniors need a roof. I think people need streets. The reality is, we can do this. It will require being more aggressive on funding, state, federal, and how we prioritize grants, and being smarter on how we prioritize which streets we fix. There is a standard, but there's also, you can go worst first is one way to look at the standard. You can go slurry only. There are a number of strategies.
Thank you, Mr. Rex. Folks, listen, I wish we had more time, but the two candidates here see you with your frustrations. We're all here because we need the benefits that we're entitled to. And if either one of these candidates becomes the victor as the mayor, they're listening and hearing from us of the basic needs of life conditions that we are entitled to here in West Long Beach. I'm sorry, our time has wound down. But we all experience as the answer. If it would be much longer, we would have to have a complete arena to be fitted in. But thank God for the two of them who have made their time to come to see us. They see the diversity of our colors, of who we are, the cultural experience of what they viewed today. So take what you've learned from what they presented to you, make your choice. Outside are some signs and there are tables out there for the candidates. Whatever it is that you have surmised of as to who to support, this is the freedom of the United States that provides to you. So give the candidates a hand, folks. Yes, Evan.
Do we have a kind of a way of maybe having maybe quarterly or 4 or 5 times a year a meeting with our mayor and our people so we can move forward, you know, from where we are to where we need to go to make everything better for everybody. So we need more interaction, we need more feedback, we need more communication so we can do this job together and make it work better for all of us.
Thank you, Ms. Evelyn. And the question is, can they come back to us periodically, whoever it is that becomes the victor, and continue to fellowship with us and meet with us and guide us? Please.
You've never invited me and I haven't come, and that's never gonna change.
That's right. We want to see you.
Okay.
We want to be with you.
Well, good luck to both of you.
Thank you.
Good luck to you both of you.